but then it's not.
Fine.
Fantastic. Okay, great. So we're all set. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the book club once again on Sunday at 5 p.m. as usual. Thank you, everyone who has tuned in. Now, today, the book that we have chosen is Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe. And I would like to start with a big thank you to Virginia Notte, who you see over there, and her book club, in which Azra is a member, because they discussed this book in May in New York at their book club. And they invited me, and I went. And because of that, that interest, as it were, was generated. Now, I asked Jenny if she or one of the others would like to present this. And unfortunately, they all replied in the negative. And I thought, hey, this reading should not go waste. I'm a great believer in discussion being the best part of the process of reading and absorbing a book. When you can share it with others, get their view point and sort of, nothing like it. So thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Azra, for that introduction, as it were. I read the book before, of course, but very long ago. So now, why this book? Well, for India, it is so incredibly relevant. We also went through that phase of British colonization, just as Nigeria did. And this book talks about how the country was, how the people lived, what their lifestyle and beliefs were. And then when the British came, what changes happened, the resistance, the protest, but the defeat before the white man and his more sophisticated weaponry. Now, by weaponry, I don't mean guns and cannons. I mean the methods, the strategies that they employed. And I must say, they were very, very smart, right? Okay, so I think I'm going to start now sharing screen. I just, while I'm trying to share screen, because now somehow, yeah, share. Sharing is not turned on. Host isn't allowing sharing. Satish, will you please? I think you're the host somehow.
I'm the host. Oh, God.
Yeah,
what do I do?
Allow sharing, please. Allow sharing.
I haven't done that ever. Share.
So press it.
Share camera.
No. I want to share.
Share screen.
Share screen.
Share screen नहीं है यहाँ कहाँ होगा? Help, folks, help.
The host has disabled attendee screen sharing.
What have I done?
You've finally disabled the sharing thing.
Oh, God.
Riddled with trouble, this. Okay, anyway. So, can share...
We're viewing Satish's screen.
Mo, you come here, I think.
Okay.
No, but then...
Will I be... I mean... But
where is your screen?
Exactly. My PPT is in here. So, Satish, is there anywhere where you can make me host? I think that will solve all the problems.
Okay, where are you, by the way, right now? You're not there anyway.
Is Monali around?
She was. Monali, where are you?
Okay,
Hey,
Mohini. You want to be made the host, no?
Yes.
Yeah. Make host.
Oh.
Want to change the host? Yes, okay.
Oh, you found it. Am I the host now?
Yes, Mohini is the host now.
You're the host.
Then do I click share? Share the thing?
Yeah.
Oh, hip hip hooray. Thank you, sweetheart.
Okay.
Okay. Now, yes. Thank you so much. Here we go. Okay. Ginny, you have to tell Azra that we are not usually so awful and inept. Okay? Otherwise, she will never come again if she thinks, oh, this is how they do it. Okay, here goes. Hey.
I thought Indians were the IT masters.
I know, but not me specifically and individually, you see.
They are all the post 80 born people.
And we are senior citizens. It's a little difficult for us.
Okay, so here we are. Now, this Chinua Achebe, and you can see that things fall apart. That cover of the book has the shape of the country of Nigeria.
Can you do full
Okay.
screen more?
Oh, isn't it now?
And none of us have silenced ourselves. Actually, I must do that.
Yes.
Okay, everyone silence themselves, please.
Yes, meaning please mute your mic, everybody, except me currently. This will just do. Rapid remote control.
The one to the right of that, Mohini.
This one.
Yeah.
Is that
If you
some
click on it, yeah.
Yeah. So, you can see that. Oh my God, what's happening? I think I would. Okay, so Things Fall Apart was published in 1958. And when I read it initially, I had the impression that this was his first, best, and only novel, but it is not. Which is why I made this slide to show you that Chinua Achebe was a fairly prolific writer. And he did not only write novels, he wrote poetry, essays, and so on. He has also done some essays on literature. And the most famous is, of course, his critique of Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness. And in fact, it was when I was teaching Heart of Darkness that I read his essay and therefore got to know something about him. Now, this novel is considered a classic. Why? It is considered the first African novel, as it were. And it is particularly self-expression of Chinua Achebe's because he himself personally was poised at the crossroads that he describes in the book. So it is like one of us writing about our independence and partition and all that. Exactly the same. Now, if you or I wrote that novel, we would really be talking about what our parents experienced and what we heard of. And that's exactly what Chinua Achebe has done. Because his parents were there at the time when the British came. Now, the British brought two things which imply two changes. One is government and the other is religion. Okay? They ruled over Nigeria and they made it Christian. Now, the viewpoint in this novel is beautifully balanced, objective. In fact, his aim is to be utterly unprejudiced. The manner of narration that he has decided to use is very simple, if not even simplistic. It's like a child telling you, this happened, that happened, without saying, this was good, but that was bad. He doesn't give value judgments, which encourages us to believe what he says. Because it seems so straightforward. They're only facts. This happened. Okay? Now, he himself was in fact not a common or
না আমি নিয়ে নিচ্ছি এটা যে কোনো সময় শুরু হবে এখন ওই জন্য হ্যাঁ আমি
who
দিয়ে
is that?
দাও
Azra is, I don't know, is your mic not muted? There's sound coming somewhere. Okay. So he was a very privileged Nigerian. He was educated. He came from a a family. His parents, you see, were the ones who switched allegiance. They became Christian, they joined the government, and all that. So this is the son of those privileged people. He went to university, he went to England, he came back, he joined the equivalent of the BBC, the British Broadcasting Corporation. Now, in different articles, I see it called the Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation, the Nigerian Broadcasting Company, the Nigerian Broadcasting Service. Well, whatever. You know what we're talking about, right? So he joined that and he became a broadcaster. It is his first novel, but I think like Sons on Lovers or D.H. Lawrence, sometimes the first is the best. And they never go back to that level of writing. Similarly, Manju Kapoor, her Difficult Daughters is the best. And everything that followed is less good. Okay, so he became something of a mentor to younger writers. And with Heinemann, after this novel was published, Heinemann considered him a very valuable asset. And they agreed to his suggestion of starting a series of African novels. Now, these African novels were written by young Africans who looked up to Chinua Achebe to help them, guide them, be their mentor. Just kind of climbed. Oops, what happened there? Oh my God. Ooh, oh. No. Well, I'm just improvising, okay? I don't think this was managed supposed to come. There was something else, but no. Okay, now Things Fall Apart was very relevant then. But why are we reading it so much later? 1958, 2025, because it is now considered a classic. We keep reading classics forever. Also, there is a continuing interest in this novel. And it keeps popping up. Like, initially there was in 1961, so just 3 years after the publication of the novel, there was a radio drama called Okongo. Then in 1965, there was this, a film. 1970, another film. And now a mini series for television also. Now what happened? Okay. So, what about him? Well, in 2007, one of his later novels, Ant Hills of the Savannah, was shortlisted for the Booker Prize. But then he was awarded the Man Booker, not for that single novel, but for his body of work. Now, his oeuvre, so the genres that he writes in, have not only been fiction, but also poetry, essays, children's books, and so on. Now, apparently, I told you that he was quite highborn. He's a privileged Nigerian from whom we're getting this story. Now, apparently, he was a titled Igbo chief himself. And he reflects the Igbo oral tradition. Okay, now, there is also now a Chinua Achebe Literary Festival initiated by the writer so and so 3 years after Achebe's death in Nigeria. The voice, now I call it the African voice because there wasn't one before and now there came to be. So he tried to escape the colonial voice and he drew from several traditions because he was able to. He was Nigerian, he was an Igbo, he knew those traditions. Also the Christian influences, because he went to a missionary school. He went to a university which was funded by the British, and therefore he knew Christianity. He was Christian because his parents became Christian. So this became a unique African voice. Now, Mahesh Dattani, who is, I think, our foremost English playwright in India today, once said that he's continuously asked, why don't he write in his mother tongue? And his famous answer is, I do. So, now, in India, there are many people who consider English their first language. Me, you probably. Okay. Now, he defended the use of English, saying that it gave access to a much larger readership. Now, that essay that I was talking about Joseph Conrad's Heart of Darkness, in that he calls Conrad a thoroughgoing racist. This came as a heck of a shock to the British because until Chinua Achebe said this, it had seemed as if he, that is Conrad, said in that novel, Heart of Darkness, that among the colonizing countries, among the imperial powers, Britain was the best. It was the most humane. But Achebe said, well, the British are utterly racist, and Conrad is utterly racist. Now, this is the place that we're talking about. That's Nigeria over there. There we are. Not a very large country. But that's Igbo land. Now, in the book, Achebe is not generalizing about all of Nigeria. He is talking about this area in which the Igbos live. Until about 20 years ago, it used to be spelled as IBO. And then it became IGBO. Very difficult, isn't it? That little the sound must be coming out somewhere. And, it's hard to know really how to spell a foreign word. The title, Things Fall Apart, I'm sure most of us recognize it as coming from the poem by W.B. Yeats called The Second Coming, in which Yeats says, okay, now the widening gyre. The falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The center cannot. Now it's a very it's a very famous expression. Things fall apart. Whether we know where it comes from or not, what does it imply? That there is no one thing to blame. You cannot say, oh, that's why it happened. Several things happened. Okay? Several things happened, and therefore things fell apart. Okay. Now, this is what Achebe, please read the bold part. Africans are people in the same way as Americans, Europeans, Asians, and other people. Although the action of things fall apart takes place in a setting which most Americans are unfamiliar with, the characters are normal people who undergo real life experiences. The necessity even to say this is part of a burden imposed on us by the customary denigration of Africa in the popular imagination of the West. Doesn't this remind you of Shylock's speech? Are we not human? I mean, if you prick us, do we not bleed? If you tickle us, do we not laugh? So, I mean, Jews are people, Africans are people. Sad that this has to be pointed out. Now, The book is about change, transition. It's an era of change happens all the time. The most constant thing about the world is change. It's happening all the time. But there are periods of what should I say, concentrated change, an era of transition. So what happened was that European missionaries, colonial forces arrived, and our hero represents the Igbo people who resisted, protested, tried to drive away these people who were unwelcome. They had not been invited. What the heck? Now, who's this guy, our hero? Now, the book is divided sort of into three parts. Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, explicitly. The first 13 chapters are Part 1, and they tell us what Umuofia was like before the British came. And 2 and 3 tell us about how they came, how they were repelled. You know, they did try to repulse them. And then how they won and the local natives lost. So the first 13 chapters, which I find extremely important, it's almost half the book in terms of pages. Okonkwo is an ambitious young man spooked by his father's failure. Now, why did the author find it necessary to give our hero a very failed father? Because then the contrast, you see, Okonkwo is a self-made man. He got nothing, absolutely nothing from his parents. He did not inherit anything. In fact, what he did inherit was a bad reputation. You know, but luckily, the people of Umuofia did not believe that, you know, an apple doesn't fall far from the tree and all. They believed only in the characteristics man displayed. They judged a person as by himself. That gave Okonkwo a chance. Now, his father, Yunoka, was, well, I've called him a flautist, really. I think that's honoring him too much. Because it's not as if he was a musician who a musician can be rich and famous, but he liked music. He played the flute. He liked having fun. He liked drinking. He liked people. And he spent all his time like that. Otherwise, he slept. It is an agricultural economy that they. And year after year, season after season, his farming always failed. So that he was always going around begging, for new seeds, begging for yams. Yams, the main food. And begging for money. He died with much loan on his head. Okay? But please notice, I just let to point this out because we can't come back to him again. Now, the voice that is narrating points out all these negative things. But can't you and I, who are a little more sensitive as readers, can't we see the other side of him? He was a free soul. He was a happy person. He liked music. He liked people. He liked getting together. Okay? It's good too. I think it's a very good thing to be. But he left no inheritance. So Okonkwo is a self-made man. He's tall, he's strong. We're told he has bushy eyebrows. And he looks quite something. He looks like a wrestler, which he is. Champion wrestler. He has a slight stammer. And when the stammer comes through, he gets very irritated with himself. And therefore displays more anger even than he's actually feeling. And the word pounced is used, Then he gets angry. He verily pounces, on the object of thing. And his wives and children live in fear of him. At 18, he defeated Amalinze, the cat who was the wrestling champ, and became famous in the 9 villages of his tribe. fear of failure and of weakness. Now, this is the quotes from the book. This is what drives him. And you will see that a couple of controversial things that he does are all because he is so afraid of looking like his father. His father is one person he never wants to be. He abhorred idleness, was always busy. And we are told somewhere that the way he walked, it was like he had springs on his shoes, you know. He is not gentle, he is very harsh and severe, very brusque. He thinks showing affection is a sign of weakness. Now, his father, again, I've called him a flautist because he played the flute. He had no titles. You can take 4 titles in this society. How do you take the titles? By being successful, by paying money to society, asking, and you can have it. Okonkwo with 3 titles in his lifetime. Now he has 3 wives. Again, this thing of monogamy, polygamy, and all that. This also all depends upon success. You can take a second wife if you have that degree of success. And in fact, it's very interesting that the second wife, Ekwefi, was married to somebody else, and one fine day she gets up and walks out and comes to Okonkwo. Okay, now these are the people, the other characters that we have. Obierica is his good friend, and you see him again and again in the novel. And Obierica, I think, is what I would be, if I was there. A very wise person, someone who thinks. Yeah, you got to think. Don't blindly follow. Now, by now, I think you got the picture that Okonkwo was so dead keen on becoming a success, which his father was not. You see, the opposite of his father. But he forgets that the society in which he lives, its laws and rules and customs may not always be the best or right. Surely it's okay to doubt, to question, to protest, but he doesn't. Yeah, there are 2 kinds of characters: those who represent a society and those who rebel against the society. So this guy represents his society and he follows the diktat of the powers without question. Okay, yes. So, as I said, he had no inheritance, he had nothing. Apparently, young men could even inherit a young wife of their fathers. But he had nothing. And we're told not even a young wife, But this one person, Envakibi, helps Okonkwo get started because he believes in him. And Okonkwo, of course, returns what he borrows from him with interest. Uchendu, who's an uncle in Mbanta, at one point, Okonkwo is punished because he has committed a crime. Crime according to the law of his society, his land. You will question that law very much when you hear of it, but he is exiled. And Cielo is a priestess of Akbalo's oracle. We all know of Delphi and Apollo's oracle. Well, there's something very similar to that. It's an agricultural society. Yam is the king of crops. And yam is a very temperamental vegetable. It's temperament. There's no rule. You see, one year you do this, it works. Next year, the same thing, it does not work. Then, of course, the climate. If it rains too much, rains too little. Oh my God, it's difficult. Then we hear about social customs, which, interestingly, he does not explain. Now, I don't know what you think of this, but when people meet, when you go to somebody's house, you are offered cola nut, pepper, and a piece of chicken. Okay? This happens very close to the beginning of the novel. The cola, okay, it's like supari, I suppose, apni supari pan, something like that. Pepper, okay, you can eat it as symbolic piece of chalk. Huh? I mean, so many critics have asked the question, why the chalk? What is the chalk supposed to mean? But the author has chosen not to say. And I must say, I have not found it. I did search a little, but not a lot. So if any of you have searched and can tell the answer, be very happy to hear it. Okay, wedding rituals, bride, price, how the girl dresses up, when she is to meet the prospective groom. To get an idea of the concept of beauty, the concept of aesthetics in the society. Now, there's a kind of Africa that we all, I think, sort of associate with the kind of fear of darkness, fear of spirits, a lot of irrationality here, superstitions. This now, I don't know what the swelling disease is, but if anyone dies of the swelling disease, it is considered disrespecting the earth. And in fact, Yunoka was taken to the evil forest. Now, there's a forest there which is called the evil forest. And it is where everything is dumped to die. So, since Okonkwo's father was dying with this terrible disease, he was dumped in the evil forest. Twins. Twins are also an abomination to the earth. So, they have to be destroyed. Oh my God. I mean, this is one of the things that you and I question. Because, in our societies, there's nothing wrong with having twins. You see how habituated we are, what creatures of habit we are. Oh, okay, but it's like in To Kill a Mockingbird, when Scout asked her teacher, why did the Germans hate the Jews? They're white, aren't they? That's the only prejudice that she knows. But there are lots of prejudices. This is very hard to understand. Twins. And in fact, Okonkwo's wife has had a pair of twins, and they have been this. Okay. Herbal medicine, Okonkwo's daughter, his favorite child, is very ill. And so he goes to the forest, gets those leaves, brews the medicine, gives it to her, and a week later, she's okay, right? So just thinking, oh, what kind of system of medicine is this? It's not going to work. Hey, but it does. Now, sometimes you see these native things working, so they appear to be right and good. It's as if the author is validating them, and sometimes they don't. So, what are you to make of it? There is such a thing as a week of peace, in which nothing is to be done, no work is to be done, no violence, no yelling, no shouting, no insulting. Unfortunately, Okonkwo picks a quarrel with one of his wives, and he has to pay, the consequence. He has to be punished for that. Chi. Now, chi is your fate, all right? Your guardian spirit, your fate, whatever you call it. So your chi decides what happens to you. But it is also said, if a man says yes with vigor and strength, then his chi also says yes. So isn't this just a way of saying that you cannot decide your fate yourself? But if you work hard, you're going to make happen what you want. It's not only fate, it's your strength also. Ew, such a peculiar thing this is. Now, when a child is very ill, the medicine man is very ill. The medicine man is called because she's on the point of dying. She's bad ill. And he asks her, where is your yuva? She says, what? What's that? He says, tell me, where did you hide it? She says, you know what he's talking about. But she's only 10. And then he goes on and on very seriously, and she sees everyone around waiting to hear what's happening. She's only 10, remember? She's, oh, it's over there. And they all go that way. She's enjoying the attention. She's enjoying that everyone is attention is, centered on she lays a pretty game. Finally, after digging here and digging there, something, a little bag and a stone falls out. He says, "Is this it?" And she decides to say, "Yes." I think you and I absolutely realize what rubbish this is. But thereafter, he says, "Oh, in that case, she's going to get better." We see wrestling matches, which are which tell you that these tribes value physical strength. Of course, they do. They're eternally at war, with other tribes. They have to be strong. There are festivals respecting the ancestors, dressing up like them, pretending to be the spirit of your whatever. Their religion, which so quickly loses to Christianity.
Yeah.
The one god is called Chuku, and then there are smaller gods, and they have wooden idols and all. The way it is described is, you don't bother Chuku with little things. Therefore, you go to his assistant. And you ask the rain god for rain, and you ask someone else for intelligence, and so on. The Christians find it hilarious.
Yesterday he assured me.
I just okay. Satish, I don't think I'm the host. Um, I cannot silence. I cannot mute people's mics. Wispy's mic, I think, is speaking. Can you mute it, please? Wispy, please mute your mic. A female Uchu. Okay. Now, something happens, okay? At the funeral of one of the big men of the tribe, there is afterwards dancing and getting together. In that, now the men are carrying their guns and their weapons. Okonko's gun explodes. He does not pull the trigger, but the gun explodes. It's an accident. But they call it a female Uchu. Uchu is a crime. A male Uchu is a serious crime, and a female Uchu is a smaller crime. And in this case, it's not by his volition, really. But he has to be exiled for 7 years. And so he just wraps up the family. By daybreak, they are gone. And where do they go? They go to his mother's village, Mbanta. Hello, everybody. Is your mic muted? Wispy, is your mic muted, love?
Azra, I think there's something coming from your side.
Discussion.
No.
Caroline, another person. The two of you are Jayanto. Just see if you're muted or not.
Okay. So
Jayanto, you're not muted.
I have muted Azra and Wispy.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I can't see.
Go ahead.
All right. Yeah. Now, he thrives. This is a guy who will thrive anywhere. Okay, because he works hard, so he thrives. And his uncle there gives him support. He has family. Now you can see how important family and support is. He's given some land and he farms it, and they're doing fine. Obierica visits him and he tells him that a white man has been sighted. A couple of years later, the white man comes to Mbanta also. The first white man is thought to be albino because, no color, riding an iron horse, a cycle. They see him, they talk to him, and they kill him because the oracle says, now when the oracle says, the people follow. The oracle says, if you don't kill him now, lots more will come. And so they kill him, but lots more come anyway. Now, Christianity, all right? Now, the double-pronged approach is of government and religion. Now, government is imposed, right? That's never popular. But Christianity somehow appealed to some people at least. Why did it appeal? Because if I'm, well, you can imagine that the religion that they follow is full of superstition. It's illogical. That's why I gave you the few examples, the EUA and whatnot, the twins and all. But Christianity is also found to be illogical because when the missionary says that Jesus Christ was God's son, and someone says, "Oh, so who's God's wife?" And no, there's no wife. Oh, who is it? Then how can there be a son? Ha ha ha. But the first aspect of the white religion that appeals is the music. The music is so beautiful. It touches the heart of Envoye, for one, who is Okonkwo-san, and many other people who begin to go to the meetings just to hear the music. Okay, then now the first missionary is a very kind, sweet, good person who tries to make friends with the people. And he asks for land to build upon their church. And he is given land in the evil forest. Initially, when the leader says, "Yes, you can have land," everybody stares at him, "Are you crazy?" But when they realize, oh, he's been given land in the evil forest, they realize this is really sending them to their deaths, isn't it? Because everyone who enters the evil forest dies. But these people go, they clear the land, they start building, and they haven't died. And the local people keep waiting, expecting them to die any moment, but they don't. In fact, the church is built, they sing those songs, and now even the Igbo locals begin to have the courage to go there and hear the music, and they come back and they say, "Hey, we didn't die." That means that something that we have been taught all our lives is false, it's wrong. So these holes start appearing in the fabric of their own beliefs. Okay, now who are the people who get converted? Remember, Achebe's parents were among the very early converts. And I can imagine that the degree of rationality or the kindness of Christianity must have attracted them. Outcasts. Now, who would the outcasts be? A person with the swelling disease who knows that very soon he's going to be chucked into the evil forest. But the Christians are not against him. They say, "Oh, well, this is a disease like any other. Of course, you're welcome here." The unhappy people, the mothers of twins, who have lost their children needlessly, all these people. Now, if you remember, I did say that Obierica is a man who thinks, questions. Not aloud, maybe, but inside his mind, he does. So the support for the church begins to grow, and the unhappy people, the outcasts, and there are several, by the way, begin to think that this is an alternative. The church offers an alternative, and so they turn to it. Okay, now the storyline. What happened to the? Okay, I'm going to skip these. I didn't complete all the slides. Now, this is, I haven't written the author's name. Is it Chimamanda Adichie or some young writer, anyway, who has said? Now, earlier I said that he became a mentor to young writers. So you see, this is, Oh, apologies. Oh, oh my God, what about the others? There's so many more slides I have. Right. Hmm. I don't think I've been very brilliant today in my PPT arrangement. I have lost some slides. It would appear. No matter. So, what does the novel do? It puts before you, it tells the world. Yeah, what's the time, Sadish? What's the time? It's okay. So the novel basically tells people beyond Africa what life in Africa, in Nigeria, among the Igbos was. Chinua Achebe, when he critiques Conrad's Heart of Darkness, makes some very excellent points. He says that the white man came to Africa thinking that he was God, as it were, and that Africans were nothing. But do they know, for example, that it is apparently some artifact, African masks, that was seen by Kandinsky, brought in modern art in Europe? Okay, so how can you? I mean, he points out, like in that excerpt I had also, he says Africans also are people, aren't they? They're people like anyone else. They had a lifestyle, they had a religion, they had, their own symbols, beliefs, and all that. In section 2, this is in Mbanta, where after he's sent to exile, his mother's family help him out, okay? And during that time, the white man comes. Now, in section 3, there's basically conflict, because Okonkwo goes back after his second 7 years of exile. And what happens is that he encourages his fellow leaders of society to be more, what should I say, loud, more determined in their protest, to move the white man out. But they have a meeting with the white people where they are insulted, they're demeaned, they're humiliated, and they come back losers, And then there's a meeting where Okonko stands up, machete in hand, and yells, against the white man, thinking that once he has led the company, everyone will get up and they'll rush towards the white people and they'll be finished. Instead, what happens is nobody gets up. Nobody gets up. So what has happened is that in the years that he has been away, and I think this is why Achebe decided on this exile jazz, so he could put him away for a while and then bring him back to a country that has changed. The people no longer hate the white man so much. They're afraid of him. But some of them have joined his church. And some of them are looking for lucrative employment. Can you hear the echo of what happened in India also? Okay. And so it ends, with the death of Okonkwo, and that is everything that he believed. So the African tribe loses, the white man wins. This is history. This is what happened. Okay. Now, let me just go once more, see if those slides appear. There are 2 or 3 more that I had made. Okay, so that's stop share. Oh. Okay, now I'm trying to stop share, okay? Now, everybody, please switch on your mics. And make comments, ask questions, etc. Help. Where's that share thing? Not stop share business.
The bottom.
Bottom. Okay, where shall I go?
You know where chat, reactions, share screen, more.
Okay, not there now. That's the thing.
Can I please? Okay, it's ready.
No, everyone is switched on except Gautam and Jayanto.
This is.
No, she's trying to stop share screen.
You are stop share.
You want to
Got it.
stop the share screen?
Yeah.
More?
That's
Yes or no?
yes, yes, yes. Fine.
I did. Okay. Yes. Yes. Oh, Caroline. Hi there.
Yes, hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Nice to be here.
Oh, lovely to have you.
Thank you so much.
So now, Virginia, Azra, Caroline, who are part of that group, would you like to say anything? And we'll move on. You know, everybody, please. I mean, you're so welcome now to speak. Okay.
Can you
So-
hear me? Can you hear me? This is Azra.
Yes, Azra. Yes.
So, Mohini, you did a wonderful job with the narration of the story and the background. I must say, I totally empathize with your view. I saw India in the background. We went through a similar colonial period.
You bet.
And then I jumped ahead and I thought, well, you know, a lot of the untouchables, the underprivileged,
Yes.
converted to Christianity and Islam. And please correct me if I'm wrong. Apparently, 80% of the Indian Muslims were originally the underprivileged, untouchables. So this current
Wrong.
political
American Muslim, Indian Muslim.
That I don't know. Runa, was it you who said wrong?
Yes, I said that is not entirely true. You know,
what
one thing.
percentage?
No.
Okay. Now, Runa, just let her finish and then you.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Come on.
So
Azra, go.
what I understand is that most of the converts to Christianity and Islam were the underprivileged, the untouchables or the Dalits, because they had a
Yeah.
better life. So
The
into-
rights Christians, for example, that Arundhati Roy talks about, right?
Yes.
Amy Tan, you know, talks about the Chinese who came and became Christian for food. You know, they had nothing. So
Yeah,
yes,
yeah. So I don't know the percentage, but that was a very attractive thing to convert to because they could stand shoulder to shoulder, go to church. Not always, but you know, yes, that was the principle
that was what
behind.
they hoped for at any rate. Because
Yeah.
Christianity, as in this novel, they said just because you're diseased or whatever doesn't make you any less than anyone else. Right?
Right. And having said that, yes, Arundhati Roy's novel, God of Small Things, does talk about the discrimination even between the Christians because of the lower caste man. But I guess, you know, they could, generally, they had a somewhat better life. So the current situation where this hatred for other religions in India, couldn't it be explained to people that these were originally people, many of them, not all, converted? You know, so could you sort of throw some light on it, why everyone believes that the Christians or the Muslims or the others are that different from Hindus, or there was a reason why they converted?
Can I come into the picture?
Yeah.
When you say
Yes.
let's the Muslims, I do not say that they're converted or anything like that, because they were the ones who came in later, earlier days, and they stayed there, made homes down here. And yes, a few of them got converted themselves, etc. But religion was not a big player in early times. What the British did was they started pushing up they started getting more Christians thing, and the Christians, they picked up the lower castes, and that is where the talk about, somewhere or the other I read about India has a lot of lower caste people because they were Christians, etc. That was another thing. But again coming back, all that talk about lower caste and all this has come in much later, after India became this thing, where people wanted to kind of find way, to to stop us from to stop India from going bigger. That's how I look at it, because
Divide and rule type thing.
I find that it's very saddening that this has happened, and in fact, it started when the bifurcation was taking place in the 75 years back. That time, it was the lights, the fires were lit.
Give this one, give this.
Okay. Yeah. So, Runa, please.
Acha.
No,
Runa.
this whole thing about Islam came to India along with the time of when Islam first was born, which is about 700 AD, right? It came through Arab settlers, Arab merchants who actually, commanded the ships all over, in and around the Indian Ocean, Bay of Bengal, and so on. And as Satish says, they settled, they traded, and in those days, since they were dependent on the winds to take their ships, it meant, they came in and they stayed for 4, 5, 6 months at a time in India, in near a port, and they made friends. They were traders. Traders always make friends with the local people. Otherwise, how do they do the trade? And in fact, there are records of Somnath temple authorities granting them land to build a mosque so that they could pray, you know. So all that was there. It was all in a manner of, I mean, coexistence. And in fact, the Hindu, I don't want to call it Hindu, I don't want to give it a name, but the religion in India at the time was very, very it was very fragmented, in the sense there was no unifying thing. The local village believed in their local deity and they believed in a general principle. But since we don't have any strict scripture as such, there was nothing which you could rally around. So it was very inclusive. It adapted to everything. That was one.
Okay, it
Second
is too
thing is,
heavy, that's
after that, quite shortly after, somebody called me.
Hmm. Yeah.
Acha. So then what happened is, I'm talking of even before the sultans, the Muhammad of Ghazni and all the sultanate came, even before the Mughals, even before the Muslim invasion from the north. um, our Indian kings and in the south and Deccan and beyond, they would all war with each other. War was the profession of kings, right? And nobody had a standing army. So they had mercenary armies, which were local people, peasants, and so on. And they imported a lot of people from the Arab Gulf, where they were very trained warriors. Many of them were slaves, and slaves from East Africa. So that's how we got the slave dynasty, when they all came in. So it's a very complex history of how Islam came in. But what I'm trying to say is, they came in with the armies which came in. And a lot of I mean, in the Deccan, the Cholas, all these people, they all had a whole lot of Muslim army of good rank, officers of good rank who used to run their armies and so on. And they had their people with them and all, and they would settle, they would intermarry. So I would say, I mean, I wouldn't talk about percentages, but there are much fewer converts. They're all, and when you intermarry, you automatically take the religion of your father. So that's how the incidence of Islam sort of increased. As far
Okay.
as the Dalits are concerned, many of them did convert to Christianity, but many also converted to Buddhism. Let's
Buddhism.
not forget. So it's a very
Yeah.
complex thing. You can't just say this or that. And
Absolutely. Absolutely.
what Satish
Thank you.
says about the hatred or about the othering or whatever, all that is man-made, and it has
Of
happened.
course.
There is a history to it. There is no
Yes.
doubt about it. But India had a history of coexistence. There is no doubt about it.
Yes, which was
Ma- ma-
proud of and which
Which
gave us a high moral ground. That was the
high
Indian
moral ground and all,
that
and
I
it's because
identify with. Yes.
identify, and it's because when you become rigid in your beliefs, there was a time when there was no rigidity, I think, but society, things change, religion changes, even Christianity is horrible. I mean, I'm sorry to say like that, but when it became rigid, I mean, Christianity is not famous for being kind and gentle. I mean, think of the Inquisition, think of the Crusades, think of all the horrors they perpetrated in the name of religion. So
Yeah.
there's not much to choose.
Okay, right.
may I jump in over
Okay.
here?
Yeah,
There are
Yeah.
others. Yes, who's that?
Jayanto,
Jayanto.
if there are others in the queue, I can wait. I have no
There's
problem.
no queue. Come on, I couldn't start you. Yeah,
No,
please.
no problem.
Yes,
Actually, Runa, what you said strikes a bell. There's this book called The Land of Two Rivers by
Yes, yes,
Nitish Sengupta, The History of Bengal.
yeah.
That's the only thing I can talk about because the other parts, history of the other parts of India, I've not read as well, or at least as well written as Nitish Babu's book. See, there he talks about one thing: Islam came into India with the conquerors. You remember that Bengal was settled by the sultanates way back in the
Yeah, way back.
10th century. 10th century, I think,
Absolutely,
much
yeah.
before
Yes.
other parts of India got colonized by. I'm using the word colonized within quotes by Islamic conquerors. And he talks about three reasons why people converted to Islam. One was, he said, the this oppression of the Dalits. He didn't use the word Dalits, but the oppressions of the lower castes and the non-castes people, the Shudras and Namashudras, etc. For them, this was a perfectly good way out. They can avoid the Brahmins and all of that. Number one was that. Number two was that there were better economic opportunities. They would get jobs. They would get jobs maybe with trade, with the army, or whatever. They would get jobs, which otherwise, if they remained Hindus, nothing much would happen with them. And third was that education was open to them. So because Islam is in one sense a very inclusive. Again, the word is a little inclusive religion in some ways. In Conan Doyle, when he's talking about the reporters watching the battle in Sudan, Battle of Khartoum, and he talks about the reporter says, "I see black slaves and the sultans fighting side by side." That was something that would never happen in the British Army. So I'm just using that as an example.
Absolutely.
So from that perspective, also the sense of equality, the sense of economic opportunity, and the sense of availability of at least I'm now allowed to educate myself, etc. Must be
Break the
sounded like a
mold.
very good opportunity.
Absolutely.
So it's as you said, it's not it's not very easy to say this is the complex that happened in Goa. There was a degree of oppression there. Inquisition came to Goa. The Inquisition did not come to Bengal. So
Correct.
different parts of the country had different ways or motivations or pressures or whatever, what have you, to convert. So it's not something one can say. This is a broad picture that happened.
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, both of you. Other people, other aspects of the novel, please unmute and speak. Yeah, Pratima, yes.
Yes, I want to novel, and I wanted to ask you if somewhere the novel is about how masculinity is presented there. I would say that the novel is basically about toxic masculinity being rejected. And if you look at it even from a Christian perspective, like in a way, compared to the typical well, gods. Jesus Christ is gentle. Jesus Christ is, kind. So somewhere, like, when Okono is rejecting that kindness, therefore is rebelling against the Christianity. While, for example, his son, who is more like his father, is towards Christianity. So somewhere it is also about religious identity and the type of masculinity that is being talked about. The novel
Okay.
is
So Okonko is basically a sort of an image of masculinity in the way that, his community got. So physical strength, aggression, he thought that showing affection was weakness. Remember? Whereas, I mean, the image of Jesus Christ, I mean, Varuna has said something very different, but the image of Christianity is of kindness, pity, mercy, isn't it? And that is what Envoy found attractive.
Yes.
So to him, yes, that masculinity that is represented by Okonkwo is toxic, yes.
And I would say that if
Yeah.
you look at,
Now, Latika, how about Latika saying something?
could I say something more?
Oh, yeah, sure.
I would even say that his
Can I
friend,
come in at some point, Mohini?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Just let Pratima finish.
Sure.
You know, you kind of disappeared from the gallery. Oh, there she is. Pratima, I think
yes,
she's lost connection. Yeah, please. Yes, can you finish, please? Other
yes,
people would like to join. Yes, come on.
I was going to say that somewhere his friend, the wise person, he's the real narrator of the novel. Not
The
as if he was
wise
a novel
person will be Erika.
friend. Friend is narrator, and therefore we are being shown these two different kinds of male identities as well. And the choice for us was between these two.
Can't
So
get you, Pratima. Can't hear properly. It's breaking up. Now, what narrator are you talking about?
I am saying that
The third person narration.
the novel
It's
does
not
have a narrator,
my character in the novel. Huh?
and the narrator is the wise friend of Okonko. And we are looking at
Obierica.
Oberika, and we are looking.
He's not the narrator.
He is, one could say, the narrator, and
No,
from
he's
his,
not the narrator, Pratima. He's not. He's not
yeah,
the
but
narrator. He's
I,
just, I would say, touchstone,
I would
that
say that
Okonko.
he,
You see, Okonko tells, Obierica tells Okonko that following community and law is one thing, but like, Ikemefuna had to be killed. Yeah,
yes,
okay. The oracle said kill him, fine.
yes,
But did his father have to be the one to kill him? The oracle never
yes,
said, you kill him, Okonko. Obierica didn't even go that day.
surely.
He didn't, yeah, so within, he's not flouting rules, but
So
he is managing to evade, right?
what I'm trying to suggest is somewhere he is the voice of Ashby in the novel, and Ashby is thus presenting to us two ways of looking at masculinity itself. The
Yes.
novel, and therefore I'm saying that he's in that sense the narrator, and he's
Ah,
in the novel, the voice of the novelist. And therefore, we have two kinds of possibilities. The father Okonko, his son, who are supposedly weak, but actually who are more gentle. And therefore, the son goes to Christian, accepts Christianity. Here is
yes.
this who is typically rigid and therefore, masculine in a toxic way. And maybe that is why the novel is also about that. So if you realize
Hmm.
it's all, he's always denying all the entire female principles, so to say, in the novel. And therefore I thought that maybe somewhere this Oberika is the
Hmm.
novelist's voice in the, or other novelist representative in the novel, and
Hmm.
through he is presenting these two kinds of identities of being a man. So the novel is somewhere about how one becomes a man, quote unquote, when there
Hmm.
are time separation. And that's what I
Okay.
thought. So,
Nice. Nice. Good way of looking at it. Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. Now, who else? Wispy?
Yeah.
And who else wanted to speak? Okay, Wispy, come on.
Caroline
Yes,
has.
Caroline, you're next. Wispy, come on.
Okay. Yep. So I'm glad you chose this book. And
Mm-hmm.
I think if we look at it from the perspective of the people we're looking at, um, it's not fair for us to judge from our way of life. This was their way of life. They definitely had a system. And whether you agree with all of it, because there is this violence, this killing of your own son or yeah, whatever.
And
But
please, everyone, I'm sure, has noticed that neither is perfect. Okay?
yeah,
Neither the white way nor the black way are perfect.
exactly.
Yes.
And I think that because the white man, and I liked that on the iron horse when he comes in, that he's brought something better or something superior is not the way it should be looked at, although that was the way they intruded. And there is a reason why uh, his son, who was perhaps a little more gentle and yeah,
preferred his mother's stories to his father's stories.
Exactly, yeah. So he was drawn to them because this difference in character, in personality, was not being recognized. So this rigidity is, I think, what, in a way, I don't know whether to use the word destroyed correctly, but that the white man, so to speak, became the superior being. And and of course they had their superstitions. Now, I think we all, even now, people have superstitions. So
of course they do, and every religion has its illogicalities and superstitions and so on.
So I was very
thank
impressed by what was presented through a work of fiction, but there seemed so much more reality in that presentation. Thank you for choosing.
Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Faye. Yes, Caroline, let's hear you.
Yes, thank you. I keep hearing this word rigidity, and I'm thinking how appropriate it is for this particular book. I do think that that's the point of the book. I think the overarching theme of this book is the absolute necessity of people to be able to adapt to change. Like, for example, in this case, we have colonialism. Achebe brilliantly uses this as a starting point, a springboard from which to make a much higher point, which is those who are completely rigid and unable to adapt to their environment are doomed to die. Yes. And that's what happened to Okonkwo, because he, in conflict resolution, there's actually a term for people like this who are completely unable to adapt to changes in their environment. And it's called the spoiler. And in my opinion, Okonkwo is the quintessential spoiler. He is completely unable to adapt to any change whatsoever. And the story of man is really a story of the struggle between a changing environment and man's ability to adapt to that changing environment. And Okonkwo simply can't do it. There are some good things, no matter how many ills there are about the onslaught of Christianity or anything else to do with colonialism. There are bound to be some good things too, which were pointed out by this group. For example, economic opportunity in trade, opportunities for women, for example. And then there were also medical improvements. These are all things that are goods that could be somehow integrated if people are willing to bend a little bit. And Okonkwo simply can't do it. I think it's interesting that the very word Okonkwo is an Igbo name, and it means basically strength, resilience, ambition, masculinity, and success. But in his case, it's blinding. It's absolutely blinding. There's no flexibility whatsoever. And man is a social animal, and he has to coexist, and he has to adapt to his environment. And this fellow simply couldn't do either one.
Yeah, correct. Yes, absolutely. You know, another very different kind of literature text. The Cherry Orchard, Chekhov. You know, Madame Ranevskaya, similarly, cannot change. I mean, on the first page, practically, the solution to her problem is given. She is going to lose her land, and this is how she can save it. Just, you know, Lopine even says, just say yes. He will do it all. He'll get his men, he'll cut the plots, he'll clear the land, he'll sell. But she can't say that one word, yes.
That's exactly what I mean, and that's an excellent example.
Yeah. Inflexibility. Gosh. Also, something like Moliere, you know. What's it called? The misanthrope, you know. I mean, yeah, everything he wants in society is right and good, but nothing is ever perfect. Can't you allow a little flexibility? Well, he can't. He can't. Oh, yes, Caroline, thank you so much. Yes, next. Who's.
May I?
Hmm?
Vinay here.
Who's?
Vinay.
Yes, Vinay. Come on.
Oh,
Let's hear it.
I'm sorry I missed the presentation, which seems to have been very lively, and I stepped in a bit late. But I would agree with what Caroline said, that this inflexibility also represents a past traditional way. The tradition which had become fossilized, had become too fixated and needed to change. So the sun represents the softer side to an extreme, but it also uh, suggests that the winds of change are there, and somehow a conqueror cannot adjust. And
Yeah.
that's why, towards the end, when he finds he's left alone, the others have moved on, he commits suicide. So I agree with that it was the
I
old
mean,
way of
yeah.
life which had to be given way. In fact, in India also you find this kind of rigid traditionalism, which
You
really
do.
bothers you
You do.
very
Absolutely.
often.
I
And
mean, realizing that change is the only constant in the world.
absolutely,
You're changing
absolutely.
all the time, you know. Thank you, Vinay. Yes.
Mukul.
Mukul,
Yes,
Rishi. Come on.
I have a big problem with Zoom today.
Hmm.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, loud and clear.
Yeah, okay, loud and clear. Great, because I heard everything. No, mine is not related to the story per se, but what I want to know is if Mohini or anyone else could throw some light on the British occupation of Nigeria and their experiences and the local experiences as compared to our country. I mean, we had a different kind of society,
Yes.
stratified education, educated society up to a certain point. So, therefore, how was it difficult for us to absorb what they said, and what were the experiences of the Africans? Very generally, I don't want a detailed historical thing, but if anybody could just tell me a little bit comparative. Runa, would you?
I just want to say that it's something which occurred to me straight away when Mohini was presenting. The
Yes,
situations are very, very different. I mean, I'm not
yes,
saying that there weren't very, very old civilization in Africa. There were. But from what, and I haven't read this book, so I don't know the nuance. But
Mm.
India is a civilization which is 5,000 years old. You know,
absolutely, yeah,
not at
yeah,
all the same. It wasn't virgin soil. I mean, when the Britishers first came to trade in the court of Jahangir, I mean, if you read Dalrymple's The White Mughals, you
yes,
realize
yes,
they considered the civilization far more cultured than theirs.
yes,
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So
yes,
that's different. And I don't know what the emphasis is in this book, but here, are you talking of just change and modernization, or are you talking of colonialism? Because
yes.
two are very different
Colonialism.
things.
I fully
Colonialism
agree
is
with
something
what you.
very different when they are exploiting. They have exploited. India was exploited, and Nigeria was also exploited. There's
Yes,
no doubt about
differently,
it.
differently. Yes, yes.
But
And
I
in
don't know the emphasis of the book. Is it talking about modernity and change, or is it
yes,
talking
yes.
about colonialism? I do not know.
Both,
It's
I would
talking
say,
about
both.
change.
Modernity and change would be more appropriate,
Yeah.
as symbolized in the life of that one person who. But I was more broadly interested in India that was, as you said, very large civilization and a very large educated class also. I won't say everybody, of course. We denied education then to a lot of people, but in Africa, it was completely different. So, how was the absorption both of Christianity and the way of looking at white rule? This is, if very briefly, somebody can tell me. I was quite interested in that.
Mm.
How did they perceive the white, rule, and how was it perceived in India? Just, it
I
just
should say
Well,
though that I should say though that there was change coming not only
yes,
externally in the
yes,
situation, it was also
yes,
coming internally. we had some local people questioning, for example, the old taboos, the old,
Yes.
beliefs in magic, the killing of twins because they were thought to be evil.
Yes.
These are the kinds of things that, man grapples with over time, trying to make sense of himself in relation to this environment. And if it doesn't make any sense, they evolve out of that situation. And that's what the theme of this book, I think, is all about. It's really the absolute necessity to adapt to changes. And some of them may be good, some of them may be bad, but you keep evolving. That's the point. You have to keep evolving.
So that's why my question, how was that change brought about by colonial rule absorbed in India and in Nigeria?
India also had a lot of
just very briefly, Sorry,
India,
Runa?
India also had a lot of superstition at that time.
Yes.
There was sati, and if you remember, it was Indian reformers who pushed the British.
Absolutely, Ram Mohan Roy and others.
Roy and Ishwar Vidyasagar and all these people.
True. Very true.
There were. So we're talking of customs, we're talking of rigid societal norms, which have to change with modernity, with different thinking. But it's very separate from colonialism.
Yeah. But these were impacts of colonialism, and more so on those who were educated and could question within India and probably within Africa as well. Yeah. I mean, that's what I felt. Because I just saw that it sat on a different kind of culture here and there, So that's why.
So can we hear another couple of voices? Sanjay, Kaveri.
Yeah, Mohini, hi. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, thank you. Lovely presentation, though we did have some interruptions, which was slightly irritating, but I think you did a great job. Now, this is a book that I read many years ago, and I really liked it because the first 13 chapters, the first part of the book, it really takes you into that time, that age, that place, those African villages, life there is so beautifully depicted. That's the part that I really, really liked. And I was also, what I find astonishing is the simplicity of the language. There isn't a single sentence there that a 6th standard student can't write. There are, there's no lyrical poetry. There's no adjectives. Nothing high flying about it. It's beautifully written. In that sense, it's really a brilliant work, I find.
Yeah, but there are those proverbs.
Yeah, okay.
That's gives you a sort of a feel.
Yeah, but for me, it's basically a story about.
I said simple, almost simplistic.
No, it's not simplistic. But I think that's a great art, how to present complex concepts, ideas in a simple manner. I think that's really a skill that most people don't have.
Well, I agree with Sanjay. And I think that really comes out in the proverbs that are used in the book, which are very simple and very, they're Igbo proverbs, but they reflect the real wisdom in this book. I mean, it's powerful wisdom in those proverbs that are used very cleverly in the book.
That's true.
This book is like a parable. It's like a folk tale. It's deliberately simple, and that's what makes it a great book. It's a very, very subtly written book, not easy to write also. So we cannot imagine that Achebe didn't know his English, that he wrote it in such a simple manner, but he does it deliberately, very consciously.
For me, it was more a story about the clash between tradition and modernity. Now, of course, now in our part of the world, it's fashionable to vilify the white man. But the fact is that modernity came to us through the intermediation of the white man. See, it's so if you look at societies, and for instance, if you look at Japan and China, there are two large societies where modernity came without the intermediation of the white man. Okay, and there also you find that people, by and large, chose modernity over their traditional culture. In our country, if you go to the Northeast, you go to Nagaland, you go to Mizoram, and you ask those people, would you rather be what you were 125 years ago in the pre-Christian era, or are you better off now? And nobody would want to go back to those times. So the whole thing is that some modernity, because it is based on ideas of equality, individual liberty, and human dignity, will always, I repeat, always prevail over tradition where these concepts are entirely alien. You see? Anyway, that's a slightly controversial view. I leave you here.
Can I just add one little tidbit? I have met Achebe. And
Oh,
that
you're right.
was, yeah, I met him at Ensuka, where they had a conference to celebrate his 60th birthday. And you'll be surprised that when he talks, it was, I think, an after dinner talk, if I recall, and he still uses all these parables as if it is part of their daily lingo. And if you look at it, when we talk in our mother tongue, don't we do that?
We
We are
do.
often pulling on our known proverbs and
Absolutely. We do.
idioms. And
And
that's what he's trying to bring
what
out.
they said is what makes his voice so distinctive
Mm.
is that he uses the proverbs and expressions from his language, native
Yes.
language, in English, you know?
Yes.
And yeah, that's his USP.
And he says that we did not learn from the West. You know, we need not learn from the West, we are following their yesterdays. So it was a very deliberate attack on his part, the language and the way he wrote his stories. His later books become a little more westernized, if I may say, in their manner of narration. And then they lose their charm. Whether you think, he was trying to adapt to the times or what, I cannot say, like Anthills of the Savannas, you feel a little different about it.
Yes.
It lacks the
Anna has
charm.
her hand up. Anna, would you like to pipe in?
Can
You
I
have-
add a Can I add a point?
Who's that?
This
Anna?
Yeah, Anna. Yeah. So I read this book when I was quite young, maybe 18 or 19 or something. And the thing that struck me is that change is always resisted by the powerful. And
Because they are
within
happy.
the society, Okonkwo was powerful and he resisted anything that his son or his father might have had to offer, or even that young wife of his who ran away to braid her hair or some such thing, and then he hammered her to bits. He was powerful and he was blocking change within his own society. And then came outside powers more powerful than him, and they brought in the change. So it is that I agree. I fully agree that colonialism is not something I buy at all. I don't buy any aspect of it. But the point is, we have to remember that when we are powerful, we should not ignore the voices of the powerless. And that's what the Congo did repeatedly. And it struck me as a young person that he didn't hear what his father was. He didn't hear what his son was. So that's all I wanted to share.
Yeah. Perceptive.
Can I join?
Yes, who had their hand up? Satish, you have your hand up. And Latika also. Latika, where are you? You just had your hand up. Eek, she's disappeared.
Something.
Oh, maybe she needed to leave and therefore. Achha, Kaveri, you haven't said anything yet? Kaveri?
I haven't read the book, actually, Mohini. I found it very interesting. And it's complex, this issue of how an external culture, how it impacts I'm using the word native culture, the practices and the prevailing systems in a country. There's no doubt that in the traditional society, there were some really terrible practices. There's no doubt about that. And what I thought I have seen, at least in the history of Bengal, is that the colonial experience paradoxically helped to elevate and expand the horizon in terms of thinking of those who had both very strong grounding in their own culture, but were able to pick up those aspects of an external influence which are coming in, which would elevate and liberate their minds. And that the spread of education here in Bengal particularly, it's as if, the narrative was flipped, because the Britishers here unwittingly contributed to their own downfall, because they opened up the opportunities for education, for looking at a different way of life, or a different knowledge base, and people grasped that eagerly and were then able to remove the British, because they were able to get whatever was they thought was liberating in their culture, in terms of education, knowledge, opportunities, and that helped them to throw off the shackles of what they had held them back, and they were able to remove the British. So it's very complex, this whole interplay of two very different kinds of background. It's not just sati. In Bengal, there was a practice of the firstborn child being sacrificed in Sagar Island. That was also another major practice which is not talked about. And yes, firstborn child, which is often done.
Sacrifice for what?
Yes. Firstborn child would be flung into the sea.
Why?
So there were a lot of strange practices, which were, because you had a different mindset coming in, which would question these things and was not under the jackboot of the Brahmins in your society, that you were then able to throw off many of these practices.
Oh, and often there's an economic reason behind this too. For example, this is a curiosity here. The Yoruba society in Nigeria is known as the twin capital of the world, because they happen to have the highest incidence of twins in the entire world. Now, I know what's fascinating about this is that there could be a reason behind this practice that they had in this Igbo society that we're talking about, where they viewed the twins as evil, because almost every household in this Yoruba society that I'm talking about in Nigeria, which is where Igbo is also, right? Nearly every household had twins. So, that's an extra mouth to feed in every case. And it could boil down to sometimes these economic reasons, such as what Kabari was talking about.
Right. And that's why I think what Sanjay was saying, and I'm sorry, I didn't get the name of, I really liked her analysis, who just spoke. Really liked her analysis. But Sanjay is also, I absolutely agree with what he was saying, that there was it brought in an aspect of modernity, which you could then, you could grasp, and you could adapt to your own requirements, because in Bengal there was a very strong cultural orientation with your own language, your own customs and things like that.
Okay, thank you.
So I thought that was very good, very interesting.
Now, I think we need to wind up, but Payal, I'm sure you have something to say.
Payal, please switch it on.
Please unmute.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the discussion, and I really appreciated the insights, especially how colonial power gets a foothold in a culture, and how it's not always negative. It's up to the culture to assimilate what is good and what is not. And also I really appreciated Mr. Sanjay's inputs, that a lot of people went in for conversion because of the dignity that it brought to them in a society that treated them unfairly. So I think that
absolutely
that
is bound to be the first reason.
The backward caste. The backward caste did it.
Those treated badly. Those would be the
and of course the fact that change is the only constant, and the protagonist in the book, he sort of he was very inflexible, and he had very rigid opinions about his own father and his own son as well. So that was a trait that stood out in him, and probably led to his downfall or
and about his allegiance to the customs of
yes, the fact that he was
unquestionable loyalty,
yes,
unquestioning Loyalty.
Yeah, the murder of the sacrifice of the young kid, and his own son converting, and he not being happy about it. So I thought all of those were pretty telling of his personality. And
yeah.
when I was doing a research on the author, I came across this quote that I've seen so many times. Till the lion, we heard the lion's version of things. All versions are going to glorify the hunter. So that I just sort of paraphrased it, but
right.
that's so I've seen this quote so many times. I'm really happy to know it's attributable to the author here. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thanks. It's always the winner that writes the history.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. Now,
Sorry,
Jenny.
sorry, just one last bit. The suicide itself is very symptomatic. It was something which was considered a weakness.
Yes, yes.
And ultimately, the strong man gives in to that weakness. So nobody is around when he hangs himself. Nobody is there to celebrate. You get the point that he ultimately had to do something which was despised in their culture as strong men.
Oh, I got
Yeah,
it.
yeah, probably.
Okay, Azra, I see your hand. Unmute, please. Please unmute. You need to unmute. Oh dear, you need to unmute. Wait, let me unmute you. One sec, one sec. Yes. Yeah. Azra, we can't hear. We need you to unmute your mic. I asked you to unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Now I can. Yes.
Yeah. So I agree with all the necessity for change in life, and I agree with the rigidity bit that Carolyn brought up. My point I want to make is all that is welcome, but you don't have to impoverish a country. India was one of the wealthiest countries in the world before it was colonized, and they beggared it. And by the time they left, it was one of the poorest countries. So, in spite of all the nice things, the changes and all, one shouldn't forget how the colonizing powers impoverished the countries they colonized. That shouldn't be forgotten.
Oh gosh.
I feel very strongly about that. Sorry?
Yeah. Colonialism implies racism. You're imposing your values and your religion on a people who don't want any of it. So,
yeah, but what about the impoverishment of the country, the famine in Calcutta, where Churchill
No, I don't think
diverted the
that's up
ships?
for discussion at all. Because in this novel, we don't see that, you see. Therefore, there's nothing about that. They're poor people, it's a poor country.
Yeah.
So
no, but I was generally talking about colonialism. That's all.
But just someone.
There can't be any two opinions about how bad colonialism was. Yes.
Someone was talking about that India had a population,
GDP of
GDP, etc. Early. Do you know when Jahangir used to call the British traders Jahangir,
the Mughal emperor.
Mughal emperor, he got those two people who came into Satara and thought they were the funniest people that he had ever seen.
Yeah.
And they dressed, the clothes they were dressed, the way they were unbathed, etc., was kind of something which they laughed at among themselves. It was like that.
Okay. Now, Jenny, are you going to give us the last word? Please unmute.
Meanwhile, can I make a point?
Just one sec, Pratima. Let's hear Jenny. Yeah. Jenny, your mic. We need you to unmute. We need you to unmute. Oh dear. Oh dear.
Ginny, you need to unmute.
Please. No, she don't want to say, I think. Am I right? You don't want to speak. Okay. Let be. All right. Then Pratima shall have the last word and we will wind up after that. Okay. Now, by the way, let me mention at this point that on the 21st, so 2 weeks hence, we have Friana Munshi, who's a young person who recently did her master's from my college, my student, is going to present Dostoevsky, The Idiot. Okay? I, for one, would be glad to hear about it because I have no intention of reading it. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
You probably read it. You probably read it.
I haven't though. Dostoevsky is not a writer I can read. I mean, I love Warren Pace, Anna Karenina, which else? Dr. Zhivago was difficult to get into, but fantastic. But Dostoevsky is my weak spot. Cannot. And therefore, I'm very glad to know about it through somebody. And that's the whole thing about our book club. You know, we welcome people who have not read the book because they want to know about the book. All right? That's the whole idea. That's how we different. So, Pratima, and then goodbye. Yes, Pratima.
I feel that somewhere the novel, right from the beginning, has a very tragic tone. In fact, we could even see beyond all these discussions, which are rather vague and which haven't been very pointed, we would have to look at the text itself. And the text, we realize that there are almost, one could almost compare it to Greek tragedies. And I would say that there is that tragic sense which somewhere makes us believe that Okonkwo, despite all his faults, despite his not being ready to adjust and stuff like that, he has a heroic stature. So
Yeah, he does.
Idealistic person who does not refuses to bend, and not only that, he would even say that the others are, very they can very easily be complicit with whatever is comfortable, while he refuses to do that. And I would say that it does mean that, and somewhere there is a, he one
And
can
that
compare
is heroic. I agree. That is heroic.
heroes. For one say that a novel is somewhere about adjustment. In fact, it is a glorification of heroism, wherein there is a refusal of the adjustment, and not only of that, somewhere the refusal of the British way of what Charles Darwin could say, survival of the fittest. So the novel is basically about that, and that is very important in my opinion.
Yes.
More,
Okay.
before you
Yes, we
go,
can wind up.
there are a lot of interesting books coming out in
Yes.
recent days. And
Correct.
there's a
Arundhati Roy. Yeah, I loved Arundhati Roy's first.
Arundhati, yes, but everyone knows about that. But remember that person whose mother was in the courties in Calcutta, and he comes and he's written books now.
Madhav Zadav. Maruti Zadav, is that his name?
I forgot his name.
I think so. Yeah, we're going to ask him to come. We're going to ask him.
In fact, we can ask him to come and to talk to us, etc. We have seen a couple of his movies. Yes, there's a lot of. I think. He went to a convent school. I believe that. Yes.
Who's this?
What's his name, Mo?
That is Maruti Zadav. Am I right?
Something Zadav.
Zadav. It's Maruti Zadav, I think.
So it is from Calcutta. He went to the convent schools, came back to Bombay, and he started writing for movies, etc. He's been doing that. Two of his things have come up very well, and I've asked for those books to be bought, and let's see how it is written, and we can talk to him. That was one, and another one that we're talking about was what? I forgot. Okay, we're going to have.
I've got a couple of authors coming.
People are coming around very well, except for one person called Kaveri. She's been keeping quiet too long. She hasn't looked at a book.
Yeah, well, she just left. She escaped your wrath.
Well, thank you for a wonderful discussion.
Thank
It was
you
most
very much,
enjoyable and educational. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bravo. Bravo.
Well done.
Thank you, Caroline.
Really good discussion.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you. Lovely